Good morning, Neil.
Morning, how are you?
I'm well. Neil, can you tell me a little bit about yourself and your role at Wood Group?
Yeah, so my name's Neil Baird. I am currently the president or head of quality, working for Wood Group, who are a multinational engineering, project management, construction, operations and maintenance and consultancy business. Currently headquartered in Aberdeen, but we've only in about the last 6 weeks we've been acquired by a company called Sidara, who are a Dubai-based company with, I think their main office now is actually in Holborn in London. So all exciting news moving forward.
So what markets or territories are you guys in?
So we're roughly about 35,000 people at the moment. We are across about 60 countries. We are in oil and gas, processing chemicals, life sciences, mining and minerals. We also for digitalization through our consultancy businesses, and we're moving a lot into clean energy through decarbonisation and into renewables. And I think we're kind of we were in nuclear, and I think we came out in nuclear, but we're probably looking to move back into that as a kind of industry that we've seen as an opportunity for us as well.
I may. So you're very busy.
Just a little, yes, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, amazing. So if we go way back, because I know you've been with us for a number of years, can you just tell us a little bit about where you were before CoreStream? Give us that context.
Yeah, sure. So back in 2017, Wood Group made a kind of generational acquisition of a company called AMEC Foster Wheeler, which themselves were two separate companies up until just recently prior to that acquisition. So AMEC, kind of company with a long heritage in history in engineering, and Foster Wheeler, which is a similar size company. We acquired them towards the tail end of 2017. That then obviously went through all the legal loopholes, the mergers and acquisitions. So we really got started working with them probably 2018 was the first time that we really then got visibility of what we had out there from the systems that we look after. And the systems that we typically look after were around about assurance and controls. So operational audit. What I mean, I'll make a differentiation between what we would call internal audit, which is that independent financial reporting into a audit review committee, and then an operational, quality engineering, technical auditing, HSE auditing as well. So we've got that distinction between the two. When we reached out and we kind of got our hands around what this new organisation was, which was termed Wood at the time, then we found we'd somewhere in the region of 45 action tracking systems, and they kind of range from anything from HTML to SharePoint to Excel spreadsheets, and hence we wanted to basically consolidate all of those action tracking systems, traceability systems, assurance tracking systems, etc., into a single tracking system, and hence that's why we kind of went to market and was looking for a solution for that.
Wow. I think that is a world record in the case studies that I've heard. 45 tracking systems into one. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So tell me about those challenges then of having so many systems and what it was you were looking to overcome, like with this one system that was going to replace them all. What were you looking for?
Yeah, sure. So at that time a publicly listed company, then we have to abide by certain rules, etc. We have to disclose certain aspects to our shareholders, etc. Some of that was just activity over assurance, visibility over our assurance activity. So things like, and then obviously we're also certified to international standards. So trying to get visibility across where are our issues, where are our problems, where are our opportunities for improvement, what assurance is being done in the four corners of the globe, where do we have high criticality non-conformances? Because one of the aspects that we include here are operational NCRs. And it was almost that point where, you know, when we were scratching away at the surface, we actually found a high criticality NC, or what you call a major non-conformance from a certification body, that was hidden in one of our remote locations that nobody really had visibility of. So that drive to get towards a single system was really to enable us to, one, get visibility, traceability, enable us to give senior leaders, look, we might have an issue over here, and we need to address it, and also trending information to enable us to get what are we seeing across the organization that we then need to drive systemic improvement across that organization. So those were some of the key drivers that we were looking for from a solution.
Amazing. So that reporting and oversight is just so key. That's great to hear. When you then began to shop around and choose a solution, those kind of like key objectives, or when you were looking at all the different systems, what was kind of calling out to you in regards to functionality?
Yeah, so it really was. So first of all, that it could be deployed globally. So the way that our system was originally designed, because we have non-conformances in our system, a non-conformance could happen anywhere. It could happen on an offshore asset where a valve fails in situ. It could be as a result of an audit. It could be something failing in Australia, something failing in America, etc., or any of our global operations. So therefore, the first thing we did was we originally designed the system as what we would call an open system. So anyone within our organization could raise something in a system. And then the way that we workflowed it is then came to a focal point who would then screen it before it was then entered into the system. So our first piece was accessibility, and making sure that we one system that everybody could then write to. Now, some of that there were specific elements that only certain individuals could raise, but from an NCR process, it was really accessibility. Reporting functionality. So great that we can get all this data into one place. It's then extracting that data and turning the data into management information that we can then use to guide our senior leaders to make factually based decision making. Was probably the other critical aspect in here. And then the big piece was kind of that simplicity aspect in terms of the system, because as you're going from 45 different systems to one, and we had to do a huge benchmarking exercise across what each system did, etc. Then that simplicity to try and sell or to win that hearts and minds battle with the users to say, I need to move you off your Excel spreadsheet or your SharePoint site into this new system. So the fact that we were able to do that and deploy that globally pretty quickly was, I think, testament to the system that we chose ultimately.
God, yeah, that is big change management. 45 systems to one, that is crazy.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about, because obviously we're talking about version 1, about when you first implemented CoreStream,
yes.
But you have very recently gone into a version 2. So can you just talk us through kind of what made you do that? What's the story behind that?
Yeah, so I think through version 1, and we've gone through a number of change orders over a period of time. So we first used CoreStream in our system. So we've branded our system A-Track. So it's just our own internal branding for action tracking and assurance tracking, etc. I think what the lesson I think we learned was that we didn't put enough time, thought, and kind of process it into our own early design in terms of what the workflows. I mean, as you can imagine, we're taking 45 systems and going to one. So there was probably that iteration that we had to move to where we had to kind of win the early hearts and minds. So we probably had to cater for a number of nuances in the system because that's the way that people were used to reporting. So I think our original design was not optimal. And that led to a number of change orders that we managed over the ensuing years to kind of to simplify to a degree some of our systems, but also because we have been a complex organisation. I think one of the learnings that we took is we found ourselves actually designing for the 1% and 2% solutions. So a part of the business had a client that wanted something, this way, and another part of something designed this way, and we kind of tried to cater for all things to all people. And it became untenable and unmanageable. And what started off with a simple solution with best intent and best kind of endeavours ended up being quite complex. But hence that was the drive towards what we've basically rebranded A-Track as A-Track 2.0, which we've just recently launched across the organisation.
Okay, I'm really interested in this then, because let's say someone's watching who also has 45 systems, or if you could go back in time, would you have been stricter and been like, no, we need to kind of start from scratch, let's really like keep this simple and key? Or do you believe you had to do that to accommodate to get everyone on board to then do 2.0?
It was probably a bit of both. So there was time pressures. So we were under significant time pressure to try and consolidate. So as two large companies, and this was a 1.7 billion acquisition, so it was not a small company that we were buying. In fact, I think Amec Foster Wheeler, in terms of headcount, was actually larger than Wood Group at the time. So at that time, we were an organisation of about 65,000 people. So there was a significant time pressure. So I think our learning was we should have spent more time at the outset, stakeholder engagement, understanding the process, and really almost kind of ultimately what we've done is we've really gone through cradle to grave process definition and understanding what that, and we just didn't have the time at the outset to do that. We had to get something because we had no visibility over all of these actions and assurance cases. So it was a bit of a stepping stone. So my advice would be, if you do have the time, stakeholder engagement, put as much effort into that early planning stage and process design stage as possible. Engage those that are going to be using the system, and engage the naysayers. Those are the individuals who have got a negative connotation about what you're doing. Include them in your working team so they become part of the solution as opposed to being opposed to the solutions being provided. And that then encourages their ownership and they feel part of that solution going forward.
Love that. Always good to win over the naysayers, just takes a little bit longer, as you say. So if we talk about implementation, let's talk about version 2, because it's just fresh in your mind. You've just sort of completed it. What was that implementation design process like?
Yeah, so we launched A-Track 2.0 on the 11th of March, but we really started that journey 12 months prior. So over the years we've had a great working relationship with the likes of Tim Elliott, who's been our kind of that stable and consistent resource all through the period from day one. And we got into some pretty honest conversations in terms of, Tim fed back to us, for instance, that probably, and I think we're in your top 5 users, I believe, in terms of volume, but I think what Tim was feeding back to us was that we were also probably one of the highest in terms of intervention from your side, because the system became clunky, to use a technical term, and complex, mainly from our side, driving changes, that you had to intervene to address nuances that we had in the system. So we knew it was, and we were getting that internal feedback as well, that we'd made the system overly complex. So we started a journey about February last year, where we kind of really took the time to map each of the processes out individually. So that was, we have got a number of key processes that we manage within the CoreStream application that we've deployed. That is assurance and assurance planning. So that's planning of audits, management reviews, health checks, peer assistant. We're probably planning 1,300 to 1,500 of those on an annual basis across the entire global operation. We've then got the output of that, so non-conformances and improvement findings. We've then got operational non-conformances, and laterally we've added in lessons learned as a process as well. So all our lessons go into the CoreStream platform and are available for others to use and see. So we started off we basically workflowed each of those core processes, and we had to take a step back and go, wow, look how this process was this long in some cases, because there were so many decision points, because we had opened it up to everybody could raise an action. Therefore, we had screening at both the entry and the closure to make sure it wasn't garbage in, garbage out scenario. But that then led to a number of decision points along the workflows, etc. So very early on, we also engaged. So we actually came down to London. We spent a few days with Richard, Tim, Cam, and the team to kind of go, this is our process. How do we make this simpler? What enhancements have we got as part of your version upgrades that can help this? So I think at that time the guys showed us some of the AI intervention and work that you're kind of working on at the moment, and we're looking to implement some of that stuff. So a lot of time was then spent with our own working group team. So again, pulling in some of the people that maybe have a negative connotation, pull them into that working team, and then pull together quite a detailed business case, and that included all the enhancements that we needed, the new process workflow. It included, so as you can imagine, we had 7 years of quite a significant amount of data. And because we were changing the fields and workflow, we then had to do a quite significant data mapping exercise. So a field in A-Track 1 maybe didn't exist in A-Track 2, or it was maybe renamed something else, or it was a new field. So we provided all that to the CoreStream team, and then I think the build started around about September time last year, September, October time, I think. And we kind of worked very closely with the CoreStream team over that period, regularly meeting, going through the build, going through the user acceptance, and we applied different approaches to that. It was a very, very collaborative way of working that we had going with the CoreStream at the time to get us to a solution, which is it's gone live on March 11th and gone into a period of hypercare. But what we've kind of reaped the benefit of that design process is there has been literally no support tickets being raised from the support tickets that have been raised to date is more on the data mapping than actually the application of the new workflow. There's not really been a support ticket raised, so it's the new workflow is much simpler and people are loving it. So that's a real positive for us as an outcome.
Wow. So yeah, so you basically have done what you wanted, which was to improve the user experience, so there'll be less challenges and less kind of bottlenecks and support that's needed.
Absolutely. So our mantra through the whole process was going from complex to simple, which is probably more difficult than going the opposite way. So that's always been, so we couple of mantras: don't design for the 1% solution, drive standardization, and go complex to simple. From our side, we also engaged a UI UX expert. So what we have designed is a different front end to our platform. So taking the learnings from a previous system that we also our business management system, then everybody's got one of these smartphone, and the analogy that we use is a 4-year-old child can pick up a smartphone and it's so interactive that they can very quickly get to where they want to go. If it's a game or they want to watch a Disney channel, they go on icons and simply tap on that and they're in. So hence that's what we apply to the front end of the CoreStream application, is a new user interface. We've stripped away this piece where it's open to everyone, and we've moved it back to a permission-based application. So therefore, if I am not an assurance lead, for instance, then I do not see the assurance icons. If I am not an operational finding focal point, I do not see that icons. So the general user was finding it difficult to get into the system and get what they needed. That's been stripped back now, so all they see is 4 standard icons, and they go, my actions, banner straight into that, and that's really made a huge difference from the user interface and user experience. The other aspect, which we had in a previous system that we kind of been speaking with Tim and the team to implement was that linkage straight from a notification. So now a user can get an email notification with a link that takes them straight to their action. They go straight into their action, simply update what they need to update, hit save, and they're out. And that's done. They don't. It's almost like they don't need to go into the system. They are going into the system, of course. So we've implemented that, and that also includes external users. So we're actually now workflowing actions out to our external suppliers. They are logging in through a MFA, updating their actions, and it's going back in and updating all the data. So it's really some fantastic enhancements that we've got in the new platform that we've launched.
A real reduction in clicks.
So we estimate that we are somewhere region, because we pulled that permission base back in, and we're not everybody and their dog can raise an action, and because of the workflow that then introduced in that at every stage, basically there was decisions going out and in and verification being done by focal points. We have basically reduced some of the process workflow by 70%, which is a significant reduction in our workflow. So, and that has been very positive feedback that we've got from our user groups. So, and that's ultimately our success metric, that we've gone from complex to simple.
And by doing that work up front, that's 6 months of workflow process mapping, and then the 6 months of implementation build from the software side, you're saving significant time well into the future for every individual who's working at Wood.
Absolutely. So, and again, that's where that working group was so vital, because we were at every decision point along that way, we were engaging that working group and getting, does this work for you? Yeah, it works for me. And then we would explain the logic to them, or they would explain the logic why it would work or wouldn't work. So we work very closely within that. But yes, the feedback that we've got is, and it's not feedback that we've gone out and asked for. It's feedback that we're getting generally back from users saying this system is much easier to use now. There's still hearts and minds, because there's still that perception from some of the older users that maybe haven't been in the new platform, or the system's a little bit difficult to use. So we still need to, every time we hear that, we're telling our people, go and tell them, go and show them a new system, get them using it, show them how easy it is. And the feedback's been fantastic. So it's really kind of landed well.
Wow, that's so rewarding, isn't it? When all the hard work pays off.
It does, yeah.
It's really lovely as well, because obviously you presented the UX UI at the community group that we recently had.
Yeah.
And our Chief Product Officer, Rich, said we've actually nabbed it internally. So we now use what you guys put in across CoreStream. And that is one of the benefits of CoreStream, is we leverage the best practices from all our different clients and help to improve every other environment if that's what they opt into and that's what they want.
Absolutely, and as I mentioned earlier, that the piece that we are working on at the moment is an AI interface. So when our people define a non-conformance, what we were often finding was that the problem statement defining what actually went wrong, who, where, why, when, what, how, and how much, was quite poor. So the solution that we're working with the guys was I think a solution that had been asked for by one of your other clients. And Tim was able to showcase an AI solution that can help rate that problem statement and basically give it a RAG score, red, amber, green, as to how mature that problem statement is. So we're looking to implement that in the near future. And that's the beauty of the version upgrades coming in. We can see how the tool is maturing, the enhancements that being made, and we can go, oh, we really like that. Can we get that as part of our tool set? So yeah, it's a great way of working, I think. Yeah.
Very collaborative.
Yeah.
Speaking of Tim, so I just wanted to ask a question around the team in regards to the implementation team and who you worked with there, and then also just kind of business as usual and that support that you're getting. What are the people like at CoreStream to work with?
Yeah, so it's interesting because before we were, as you said, we were down in London participating in your latest community event. Came down the day before because we wanted to do a lessons learned session with Tim and the team. And that was both looking at from your perspective, what is CoreStreams, what went really well and even better if, and also from our perspective. But one of the strongest things I think it came out was the team at CoreStream, and that was, I'll mention a few names here, but there was Dylan, there was Tim, Baz, Alex, and apologies if I've forgotten any others, but there was a core team. So Tim has been, as I mentioned, there throughout the entire journey, and he's always been that person that we've leaned on almost too much at a point where it was noticeable this time. So Alex was a project manager, Baz was the primary developer, I guess, ably supported by Dylan as well. And it was great to see that team maturing because Tim actually was able to step back and kind of do less almost and help concentrate on the other clients. But so the guys really stepped up to the plate. The beauty there was on both sides, on both our side and on the CoreStream, during the build, for personal circumstances, people actually were off for a period of time, but others were able to step in and pick up the mantle and run with it. So we never really seen a dip in progress when people were off ill or had to take time away from work for personal circumstances. So that flexibility in the team, the can-do attitude, so they're very solutions focused. And even when we kind of said, oh, we wanted to do this, it was always, oh, we'll leave it with us, and Cam would then, he would look from the development side and come up with a solution. So I just felt that they were kind of always solution focused, very flexible, can-do attitude. Nothing was ever too much of a problem. And we've ended up with some really good solutions in our platform, which, without your guys' input, then we weren't clever enough to come up with those solutions. So the team are great to work for, and we had that collaborative working approach. So when we went to the UAT stage, the first UAT phase was a little bit bitty and it wasn't as slick. So what we said is, right, we're going to do UAT real time. We're going to kind of work through it twice a week with the team on the call. We'll work through it. We'll see what works, what doesn't work, what we need to change. And that became a really, really useful collaborative session that helped us speed through UAT at a quicker rate. So yeah, it was really good.
Lovely. The co-founders, Rich and Matt, they've set out some really clear behavioural values. So it seems to be that we hire people who are quite similar with this sort of positive can-do attitude. So that's really lovely to hear. And then the technology behind, like what we're all using, is very flexible as well. So I think that also encourages flexibility within the culture.
Yeah.
So that's really lovely. Thank you. I'll feed that back. I'm just looking at some of the other questions we've got here. So obviously you went live in March, so it's not been too long for it to kind of be sort of business as usual. Have you seen any positive results or outcomes, anything that kind of calls out to you the way you think, yeah, we've definitely done a good job?
Well, I think, first of all, as I mentioned earlier, the fact that the amount of interventions that we've had to rely on you guys is kind of falling off is a significant, and that's probably one of the biggest, I guess, the biggest indication that we've got the process right and that people can use it. I think so one of the things that we've introduced is when you click on a field, it automatically triggers guidance. So I click on a problem statement, I get the guidance up for the problem statement. If I click on basic and root cause, it gives me the guidance for basic and root cause. I don't need to go and click on an information button and it links me out to that piece. I think that, so we've not done it yet because we've got to get a volume of data, but I think those types of system enhancements and the fact that we've redesigned. So when we did the design process, we also got 350 pieces of feedback from our own working group. And I think we were able to address probably 95% of that that feedback through the design. So even feeding that back to individuals who had give us that specific feedback. Kind of, we listened to you, we gave that, so they've kind of got a warmer feeling that the solution is a lot better for them in terms of they're still able to do their job. They understand why the certain decisions that they might not have agreed with it, but we've asked them to start hands behind it because we are trying to drive standardization now. So I think that is kind of going to be beneficial. But I suppose from the data integrity piece, we just don't have the volume of data. So we typically do a quarterly data integrity check. And those results have been variable, and that's really from a competency in how people are using the system. Putting that data in, it isn't really driven by the system design per se. We haven't got that information yet, but I am hopeful that our data integrity information would be much better because we've simplified the solution, we've taken away some of the excuses, we've provided a whole raft of additional guidance, built some of that guidance into the platform. So there's no excuses now not to put stuff in, to the best available information that you've got. So, but yeah, just in general, the feedback we've got so far, and I think the biggest kind of testament to that is people that are you're not advocates for the system, but people coming back to say that was easy is the biggest compliment that we're taking from the whole platform build so far. So
lovely. Something that customers always ask about is reporting, because they're always thinking of like new ideas and different ways to communicate with the board. Could you talk a bit about the reporting? Did you change any of the reporting designs from version 1 to version 2, or did you just lift and shift?
Yeah, so again, if I go back to version 1, what we did with the reporting is probably a bit overkill, if I'm being honest, in that we went to our user group. We got very limited feedback on what reporting they wanted. We looked at the 45 systems and see what reporting was being created. So we took that, but then we also looked at all the data points that were coming out of the process, and we looked at it from our perspective. We could provide this report, and that would be a good report, and we could do this. And what we found was we probably were over-reporting. So again, in the true essence of simplification, what we've done is we've removed probably about 30–40% of the reports that were being provided. Obviously, using some of the new fields that gives us better data. We're trying to move much more to a kind of here's a box standard dashboard for governance. And what I mean by governance is we're managing the actions that are in flight. So that's making sure that we're moving more towards this proactive space. So what we would have originally when we started this, we had quite poor performance in overdue actions, for instance. And I recall one conversation in Houston where with part of our organization that would say that we would never get down to 10% overdue, so we were going like, because we had so much volume, we were tracking things on, and some of our parts of our business were tracking on 50% overdue, for instance, and we'll never get down to, we set a target of less than 10% overdue on a magnitude. And we've achieved that. And on average, we were hitting about 4% overdue. So we're still, because of operational controls and client demands, there's still a lot of leeway. But yeah, so the reporting aspect, we've simplified it, moving it much more onto the proactive. So giving the guys the tools to say, I'm getting ahead. I've got 30 days to do. I need to get these actions progressed prior to them going overdue. We simplified our notification systems. In terms of the emails going out, so people can just concentrate on those actions they need to concentrate to as part of reporting. And we're the next stage just to move towards what we're wanting in the system is that drill through capability, which we've been speaking to Richard about, which is I can click on I've had a failure, so I can classify the failure, and then I can go and click on the classification to see what my basic cause and my root cause is, and therefore get traceability through a diagonal slice through an organization. And I know that's something that Richard and Cam are currently working on to provide us that next kind of iteration of the reporting, because I think that'll be really good for us. I think the other aspect as well is we're seeing much more interface with the system and pulling that through an API. So either people can still go into the system, get real-time reporting, but we're also integrating the output from the system, pulling it through an API, and then creating project-specific Power BI dashboards, etc. So that is now being done on a regular basis. So ultimately, well, we want that to get pulled electronically in real time. So that's the ultimate goal. But certainly, at the moment, the Power BI dashboard interface that we're pulling from the data, getting pulled out of the report, is very valuable.
Do you integrate with any other systems?
Not at the moment. There was some discussion about, because again, 34,000 employees, how we kept an Active Directory up to date and link it into email systems and all the rest of that. There was a kind of some conversation about that, but then again, we've not got everyone in the same HR system or email system, so still some work to be done on our side until we get our system map completely kind of aligned. So not at this present moment in time.
Okay, fair enough. You're such a good example for the rest of the company, though, to be like, we got from 45 to 1 and this is how we did it.
Yeah. It was a challenge.
Yeah. So it sounds like obviously you've got to version 2, but there's always continuous improvement and evolution, and things change within a company and the tech needs to flex to that. Where do you see your kind of CoreStream where do you see CoreStream and you guys evolving in the next like 3 to 5 years? Is there anything on the roadmap?
Oh, 100%. I mean, the evolution of AI is something that we are keeping an extremely close eye on, and we've got two pieces of work that CoreStream are looking. We're working with CoreStream at the moment. One is on that. As I mentioned, when we put a problem statement in under a non-conformance, we apply the 5W2H approach, that where, why, when, who, what, how, and how much. And Rich and the team are looking at a solution where that once the user puts that in, they can then hit an AI, they can hit a ranking button, which will basically then use AI to assess the maturity of the statement against the 5W2H, and basically give them a red, amber, and green score to say you've not got enough information, you're not including how and how much, and you're missing a when, or you've got a really robust problem statement, which we really look for, because when we see a highly significant NCR being raised, we may be coming in with no knowledge of that, so a cold eyes review. So we really need to understand the context of that from the first instance. So I think that AI interface will really help our users write the best problem statements that they possibly can. So that's a piece that I think is not too far off in the distance that we'll implement. The second aspect with AI is, so we have a lessons learned database. So we've got over 1,000 and more lessons in the database currently. But if I was to look at one of our critical processes, such as Workshare, so we may use our India office to do certain parts of engineering. So we Workshare that scope out to India or Bogota, or some of these other centres that we have around the world. So we've probably got 30 to 40 individual lessons on Workshare. So I'm going to Workshare a scope. I go into the platform at the moment and I type on Workshare, I will get 30 or 40 individual lines, which I've then got to go in and read every case to kind of understand what's the key lesson. Oh, that key lesson is about cost, time, and resource in Workshare, or that one's about communication, and that one's about workflow. What we're looking to do in the conversation with Rich and the team is, I just want an AI interface there to then go, I'm looking for lessons on Workshare. Tell me your top 5, and the AI then goes and looks at that 30 or 40 lessons and gives the user back a simple summary of here's the top 5 or 7 Workshare lessons. For more information, you can go and look at the 30, but here's the 5 that are theming through the 30 or 40 lessons that we've got. We think that could be a potential game changer for us in lesson space, because we've yet to come across companies that can really do lessons learned well, and we are one of those. We still have projects that retain lessons specifically on their project rather than putting them into the central database where it can be shared. So, but if we can show through an AI interface that, look, I can go in here in 2 minutes, I've got a summary of key lessons using an AI interface, I think it's a real game changer. So I'm really excited to see what that opportunity will bring. And then the third one is really, we've not got into the space yet, but we're looking to then use AI for predictive analytics. So where potentially is our next failure going to happen? Where potentially does the data, and this is where we could then link it into some of our other tracking tools, is where do we think the next project's going to fail with using cost, time, resource data, performance data, risk data, et cetera, et cetera. So that is a kind of opportunity we've got on our kind of list of stuff to do at the present moment in time. But yeah, I think the biggest thing that it's here, it's coming over the horizon even more is AI interface and how we can utilize that to the best of our ability.
That's exciting.
I think it was interesting in chatting with the gentleman from Sanos when we were down in London and seeing some of the things that they were working on, analysing standards and assurance programs, etc., which is right up our street. So I think that's a really positive collaboration that you guys have got up and running there.
Thank you. And how do you find the customer community events? Because you've attended, is it 2?
We've attended 2, yeah. So it was the first one. We were not in person, and I'll say they are better in person. It's better to create that network, and so 2 things kind of stood out for me. One was the conversation around the table really got us thinking. When people were talking about control mechanics and control frameworks, and so that has triggered some internal conversation with us in terms of how we can enhance that piece. And then secondly, on the back of the networking event, then we've actually had follow-on conversations with some of the other presenters there. So John at Mott McDonald, we followed on, and we're starting to share ideas and things across how we're approaching certain areas and how Mott McDonald are approaching. So it's really opened up the network and enabled us to kind of collaborate with other like-minded individuals and recognize that there's some really great stuff going on in other companies. Also recognize that other companies face the same challenges that we do, and they may be further along that maturity line in some areas. We may be further along that maturity line. So without selling our crown jewels, that conversation has been very positive in terms of just kind of getting some ideas for how we could take our controls forward. So yeah, they've been very good. We kind of really enjoyed the day that we spent down there recently.
It's like GRC therapy. Everyone around the table just admitting all their challenges. It's very good. So then if we summarize, because this has been a lovely discussion, just in regards to the overall value, because obviously you've spoken about simplicity and time saving, what kind of calls out to you when you think about CoreStream and what it's provided back for Wood?
It's an interesting one. We just had this conversation 2 days ago, and it's people have short memories. If I go back to 6 years ago, where I had no visibility over any of the NCRs globally. I had no visibility over the assurance plans. I had no visibility of high risk NCs, no visibility on a global scale. And now, a touch of my button, I've got visibility of all of it. So I can tell the assurance position on a contract in Australia. I can tell where we've got high risk NCs. I can tell you where. So that single point. Single kind of place I can go to find the truth and find out where it is, and then take action where we need to take action has been absolutely vital for us. It's helped us. It's obviously reduced costs in our business because we're not maintaining 45 different systems. It's helped us identify problems before they become bigger problems. It's helped us get on the front foot. It's enabled us to share lessons across our organisation, not make same mistakes again or repeat positive lessons. And it's a continuous journey. It helps us with the reporting. So when we come to, formal management system review that we have to do as part of an ISO certified company, then it's made our reporting. So that management system review report would probably take, anything between 7 to 10 days. We can pull that report together in 2 days now, given that just all the information's at our fingertips, and we basically are reporting that on a regular basis. So the solution has been able to kind of provide that really quickly, and it continues to mature, and we'll continue to improve it as we move along, and as we adopt AI and these other enhancements, and I think that's the other aspect for me is we are benefiting from your wider community, because when your wider community proposes an enhancement, we are the benefits of that enhancement if we need to take it into our version. So it's been a real kind of it's just been a continual improvement journey through from start to finish.
So you would recommend us?
Oh yeah, 100%. In fact, when we sold a part of our business a few years ago, we advised them, and I think they went with your part with CoreStream as their continued kind of platform. So we've already done that, and it's also been great when we've actually acquired businesses that we've been able to integrate them into CoreStream and move that data across. So that's been another kind of piece that, again, it's just we'll just bolt you on to our global platform now that we deploy, and within a matter of a short period of time, they're up and running and reporting stuff into the system. So it's been really great.
Thank you, Neil. I've really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you very much.
Not a problem. Yeah. No, it's been the same. It's great to reflect and just see the journey that we've came on. We've came a long way, and the journey has gone like that at times. In terms of the nuances that we built into the system, and we take that one on board. And we probably made it too complex, but we're really pleased with the new platform, how simple it is. We've taken away a lot of excuses, and but the feedback that we've got unsolicited is it's so simple. So yeah, thank you to the CoreStream team for enabling that and giving us a solution that is really effective, cost effective, because it's not expensive, and easily deployable on a global scale.
Lovely. So Neil, obviously you have our internal management solution. What advice would you give to other audit professionals looking for a technology system?
Okay, so our system splits in two when it comes to audit. I think I mentioned earlier that we've got our group internal audit, which is wholly independent, reporting into what was previously an audit review committee, but now that's kind of just been reorganized under the new organization. And we've got our operational audit, so that is high volume, looking at technical application, etc., etc. So we plan, execute, report, and link all of the actions to all our internal audits through the CoreStream platform. Really easy to use. We've set up a number of metrics that tracks progress, so we can see when the audit started, it's in progress, how long the audit is taking, etc. And that enables us to govern the audit process. But it's also really easy to then just see that whole cradle to grave process and that diagonal slice. So I can go into the audit report. I can then see the issues or the findings that were raised. That takes me right through to the actions, and it takes me through to the closure statement. So from one entry, I've got full visibility of the entire process, cradle to grave, which gives me confidence that the audit process is in control, and it's really easy to use. So it is our single repository for assurance across our entire organisation. So yeah, really easy to use, and it does what it says in the tin in terms of kind of corporate governance and just giving that visibility to all our people who can use the system.